My name's Anna Gordon. We are in the Good Batch Bakery. Today we're going to be making our Irish oat scone recipe. It's one of my favorite scone recipes that we do. It's actually a very simple, more traditional scone. It's got oats and currants in it. I would consider a scone in the pastry family just by the nature that it's flour predominantly and butter. And they're kind of broken down together in lots of layers. Similarly, like a croissant is lots of layers of flour and butter. This is made in the style of a pie crust, actually. So if anything, it's closer to a pie crust than any other pastry. And generally speaking, they're a little bit on the sweeter side. Round, square, triangle, they come in all different shapes, generally consumed in the morning. They're great with honey, butter, jam, or on their own. So scones can be a little intimidating to make at home, often because they are finished. When the finished product comes out, it's very dense or it's very dry. It has like a rock consistency and there's no flakiness in it. And the flakiness is what makes the pastry so great. I'm gonna walk you through a couple tricks today to avoid stone-like and make flaky. You start with a bowl of dry ingredients and we're gonna what's called cut in the butter. And again, this is similar to making a pie crust. So any techniques that we're using here, you can kind of translate over to pie. In this bowl right now, I've got all-purpose flour, some white sugar, some oats, brown sugar, and then leavening. I've got baking powder, baking soda, and salt. So that's your pretty standard base to almost all the scones that we make. And I'm gonna put this in our mixer. This can definitely be made by hand. In fact, whenever I have the opportunity when I'm not in the kitchen, if I'm on vacation or with friends or family, I like to make this by hand. So I'm mixing my dry together, and then I have already measured out 300 grams to be exact of butter, and they're broken up. You can see they're in little pieces here, and that's just gonna make the breaking down process go faster. It also protects my mixer. Butter in the bakery is a very versatile ingredient, and sometimes we want it completely melted down, sometimes we want it really soft. In this case, we want it to be cold, and the reason is because we're taking cubes of butter like this and breaking it down. We're like slicing it in half, cutting it into little tiny pieces so that it can be evenly distributed amongst the flour. If it was soft, I would just get this big sticky ball of dough in there, which is great for cookies and other types of baked goods. But for if you want a flaky pastry, this is the flake. My mixer is on low. We're going to kind of pea-size, that's a commonly used term in the baking world, pea-sized pieces of butter. Patience is a big part of successful baking. In a mixer, it takes about 3 minutes. And then this is looking perfect, kind of at a point now where this is like the biggest size. And you can see it's kind of flattened out, and that's gonna create a layer of flake in the scones. So now I'm gonna add my currants in here, which is basically just a small raisin. For a dried fruit, you can put it in now, and that could be cranberries, golden raisins, herbs are like really great. That's one of my favorite flavors to do. If we were gonna do a fresh fruit, I would add that at the very, very end. So next we're gonna be adding the wet. The wet in this case is heavy cream mixed with maple syrup. And I chose maple in this recipe because I just thought it would kind of give a little bit of a richer flavor to the pastry. As soon as the dough starts to clump together, that's when I stop mixing, because if it's after that point, then we get into the territory of over mixing into rock scones. All right, I'm gonna stop here. You'll see that I have a little bit of cream left, and with a pastry, scones, biscuits, pie crust for that matter, you might have a written down recipe, but every time you make it, depending on, there's so many factors. There's the weather, it depends on how much you broke down your butter. The amount of liquid might change. So you always wanna really pay attention to that and go more based on the feel of it versus the weighed and measured ingredients. So right now, this is perfect. I could create a ball with it, but I'm not going to because that'll be too rough on the dough, but This is really nice. So really what we want here is not too wet, because the wetter it is, just the denser it's gonna be. At this point, I don't wanna overwork the dough, because that's gonna turn it, it's gonna become too tough. So in as little movements as possible, I'm gonna shape this into a nice cohesive rectangle that I can then cut my desired shape out of. Here we like to do, what is that, like a half finger high. I like to have a really nice thick scone, but you wouldn't want to go much higher than this, because just for even baking in the oven, it's going to be either like too done on the outside and raw in the middle, or vice versa. So this is like a little over 1.5 inches. We get 12 pieces, 12 triangles out of here. I like to put a little cream on top of my scone before I bake it. For sweet scones, I'll top it with a little sugar. If you're baking these at home, I would do like a 375 and for 25 minutes. And another trick with these to get a nice bake on these is use a parchment paper, first of all. And then before I put this in the oven, I'm gonna put another tray, so to double tray them. And that allows the outside to get really nice and dark and a nice crunchy exterior, but it protects the bottom from burning. So thank you so much for making scones with me. And this is the finished product. This is our Irish oat scone. You can see it's nice and golden on the outside. It's gonna be soft and crumbly on the inside. So I hope you make scones at home, but if it's too much, please come to the Good Batch and we'll make them for you.